Hello, my name is Mika Holland, and today I'm going to be talking about a book I've chosen for this assignment called Jetty Jumping. Jetty Jumping is by Andrea Rowe and is illustrated by Hannah Somerville. I was immediately drawn to this book due to its name, as I enjoy summertime and jetty jumping. Another reason why I chose this book was because I believe it is an excellent mentor book. The book has been produced for a child audience and will stretch students as readers by engaging them in literature techniques and devices that will be deeply explored in the following slides. By using these techniques, children become interested and fascinated with how language works, therefore allowing for a fun, engaging way for developing their literature knowledge. The book Jetty Jumping has the ability to provoke imagination. For example, when Milla drops her bracelet into the ocean, you can ask the children what do they think will happen next. This challenges children to be critical thinkers and inspires emotional and authentic conversation and responses from students. This book engages children and sparks a lot of why and I wonder questions, which leads to deep discussions. For example, when the text reads and is highlighted in red below, she bites her lip and twists her bracelet. You can ask the children, how do you think Milla is feeling? Why do you think she is doing this? Children need to study literature such as narratives and other literature items, as it allows young people to think about their attitudes, values, and beliefs. Literature can be a subtle game changer for how children hold their beliefs and attitudes and helps children form their identities. Teaching children the awareness of how narratives can change their thinking is a critical element to children's literature. This is highly evident in this book as it explores Milla's attitude towards jetty jumping and how she believes she isn't brave enough to jump in. Her friends encourage her, but still she doesn't want to jump in until one day she accidentally falls in after chasing after her bracelet, which falls in the water. We see Milla's attitude change as she jumps off the jetty as she now understands that it isn't scary at all. Her beliefs and values about jetty jumping change as in the end of the book you can see Milla jumping off the jetty with a smile on her face, as shown in the far right picture. In the book Jetty Jumping, the author Andrea Rowe has explored the elements of social and cultural context. These elements can be seen throughout the book as literary techniques that allow stories to resemble the reader's lives. The book is based in a town in Australia where the setting of the book takes place on a beach. Going to the beach and jetty jumping is highly prominent in the Australian culture. As shown in the photo displayed on the PowerPoint, you can see the setting of the story takes place in a beach town where people are swimming. You can see a seagull, a jetty, a fish and chip shops, and lots of other Australian elements. This image reflects an outdoor culture, which is emphasized by people swimming in the water, playing in the sand, and sitting at the outdoor cafes. Many Australians engage in activities, and Australia is known for having an outdoor culture. This book is an excellent resource to use in your classroom as it connects with the Australian curriculum strand of English and literature. As stated in the content descriptors, children will discuss features of the setting which include the time of, year or season, and place such as a city, a town, a beach, an unrealistic or imagined place. Throughout this book, there is a strong connection to social context. More specifically, in this book, the social connection between the reader, readers think about their lives of the character and the status of their relationships, such as their friends, families, and communities. When reading the text, it makes the reader think about who is being devalued, ignored, or silenced, and what social aspects are contributing to this. The image displayed on the screen shows Miller at the top of the jetty with her friends below. Miller is too scared to jump, but her friends are calling out for her to jump. The reader may analyse this text, and see how Miller's friends hold the power in this scene, as they have already completed the task that Miller is too scared to do. In the next figure, it states her friends swim out further, and you can see the distance between Miller and her friends, as well as the look on Miller's face. This page continues to show us who has the power within the story. The social context which is explored in this book makes it a great resource to use in the classroom. Children can compare characters and events to their own experiences, as well as discuss the language being used in the text to describe events happening. In quality children's stories, there are literary elements such as a setting, characters, and a plot, as well as elements such as symbolism, angles, and particular vocabulary to create a successful story. Symbolism is a strong element within this book, as we can see Miller is playing with her bracelet when she feels sad or scared. During the climax of the book, we can see the bracelet fall into the ocean, which finally prompts Miller to jump into the water. The bracelet then becomes a symbol of Miller's courage, as she now wears it when she jumps off the jetty. Throughout the book Jetty Jumping, the use of angles is highly important to capture Miller's emotions and feelings. As shown in the first figure, we can see the illustrator Hannah Somerville has drawn a long to medium shot which shows all the characters in the setting. This is used to suggest a more distant social connection, as Miller is separated from her friends as she is too scared to jump into the waters below. Andrea Rowe used repetition throughout the book Jetty Jumping, as we can see the words jump, jump, jump from her friends who sit below the jetty in the water, as we see Miller who's perched up on top of the jetty. Towards the end of the book, Rowe decides to flip the repetition, and instead of her friend saying jump, 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 which reminds her of her inability to jump, we can then see them saying, Miller, jump, Miller, jump, Miller, jump, which is now celebrating her bravery and her newfound confidence. The use of language in the book allows the reader to understand how Miller is feeling. When Rowe describes Miller's friends' movement, such as Bonnie torpedoes, Clementine pin drops, Matilda walks the plank, and Clancy belly whacks, it allows the reader to realise the isolation that Miller is in. She has no movement to call her own. She is sitting on the jetty, still. The illustrations in the book bring the narrative to life. The beach has nostalgic pastels of blue, which is a familiar beach colour to all. The bursts of colour that reflect the diamond drops of water, as highlighted in the second image below, symbolises the magical appeal of the ocean which Miller desperately wants to be a part of. Hannah also added light sections to each page, which invites Miller and the reader to let go of their fears and see things in a less daunting light. The visual literacy model that I have created is a stop motion video. I'm going to play it for you now. Awesome. I created a backdrop alongside with some Lego people to be my characters for this story. My stop motion video is a continuation of the story as we see Miller happily jumping off the jetty with her friends behind her now. I started the video with a long shot as long shots are regularly used to establish shots to help the viewer have the context of the scene and the relationship between the characters and the objects. I placed Miller's friends behind her, ensured that they had a visible space between them. The distance between the characters allows the viewer to interpret their relationship and connections. As demonstrated in the conclusion of the book, Miller's friends are now celebrating her bravery and newfound confidence, so I wanted to place them behind her as she has now regained her confidence. Humans will stand very close to friends and family, but we don't stand close to people we don't know or our acquaintances. Therefore, I have given a small gap between Miller and her friends to symbolize that their relationship is stronger than before. As beforehand they were further away and now they are closer. I used many different angles throughout the video to illustrate multiple ideas. I used a close-up shot of Miller before she jumped off the jetty to show the excitement on her face as she is no longer too scared to jump off. A low angle was used to show how high up Miller was when she was at the top of the jetty, as it made objects look powerful. Showing this angle, it allows the viewer to understand why it's scary for Miller to jump off the jetty as it's very high. Her bracelet can be seen on her wrist at every point in the video as she does not play with it. When she did play with the bracelet, it symbolized her being scared or nervous. So by her not touching her bracelet anymore, it shows that she has a new confidence to jump off of this jetty. During the time when Miller is on the jetty, a close-up shot has been taken and Miller is in the center of the screen. MacDonald talks about the center of the page being the nucleus and how it has a strong focus of attention and is the strongest, most dominant position. I wanted to use this shot to illustrate that Miller is the center of attention and that she has the power in this scene. I also used this technique when Miller reached in the water to illustrate that she has the power to jump in the water now. I have created a poem in response to my literary text and I will read it for you now. The poem follows an AABB pattern and has 3 stanzas. Miller lived in a town with a jetty. People were jumping off the jetty, but that made her sweaty. She looked over the edge and took one big breath. She thought she'd plummet to her death. As Miller shook her hands in fear, the bracelet fell off the pier. Without thinking of the thought of tripping, Miller landed in the water flipping. Her bracelet in her hand, she realized she retrieved the band. Maybe jumping off the jetty isn't scary because she now felt merry. As the text producer of my poem, I decided to use meta-language such as alliteration and repetition. In the second stanza in the 3rd line, I used alliteration, which is where some words have the same consonant sounds. You can see the letter T is repeatedly used. In the 3rd stanza on the 2nd line, I decided to use alliteration again as it gives a rhythm to the passage and creates an exciting and engaging poem. There is repetition throughout the poem with words such as jetty to emphasize my point and to make the speech flow better. And here are my references. Thank you very much for listening and I hope you enjoyed.